Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. No matter when you may be watching this video, we want to welcome you all to jump in. This is something that we do on a weekly basis, and we're excited about today's topic. I am Raymond Sharp. This is my lovely wife,
Tanesha Sharp.
and we're here to
Jump
in. So today we want to talk about how to detox your relationship, And in regards to this conversation, detoxing goes in two different ways. Many of us, without realizing it, need to detox ourselves from previous relationships, and we need to detox from our current relationships. So maybe some toxicity that's been introduced to our current relationship that we just need to get rid of for whatever reason. And we're going to talk about it in those two factors on today. And we're going to start with the easy route. The easy route is to identify some things that may need to be removed from our previous relationships. Okay. There are some things that may have occurred, some emotions that you may have felt, some situations that you may have gone through with someone that you've been in a previous relationship with that this new person has nothing to do with at all. They didn't cause it, they don't do it, but because you haven't fully let it go, or it was traumatizing, or it was something that, scarred you in some way. And I think it's always good practice to give your time in between relationships. If you have been in a long relationship, especially it's been a long emotional one, I think you need to give yourself several months or maybe even several years. And I know that sounds like a long time to some people, but if it's going to preserve the health and viability of your next relationship, it's worth doing, especially if this is somebody that you think you may want to be in a long-term relationship potentially. One thing, and again, we talk from a lot of our personal experiences, and we are very transparent. And one thing I can say that I went through with someone in a previous relationship that kind of concerned me was, the lady I was dating at the time, she had been in an abusive relationship, physically abusive, mentally abusive, and sometimes even sexually abusive with her, the guy that she dated for a long time before me. And whenever I would make any move towards her face, she would always guard her face. And I have never struck a woman. That's something like if I wanted to, like, if I was sitting down and I was reaching up to hug her, she was coming in and I tried to reach up to hug me, she always kind of like moved and guarded her face. I'm like, why are you doing? It took her like a little while to tell me, like, look, saying I used to get slapped a lot. I used to get hit in the face a lot. So that was her defense mechanism. So even if I went to go to her face to like kind of like, hold it, like touch her face or something like that, she would always put her hand up first to block it. And that really bothered me because it's like, I have no intention of hurting you in that manner. I have no intention of even coming at you that way. So for her, that was her defense mechanism. And I understand, that was something in that relationship I had to kind of just deal with because I did want to be with her at that time. And it was just something that, I was just like, man, I feel bad. Like, golly, I can't believe that, even with me, who's never shown any aggression towards her, this is her defense mechanism. But many of us, and this is just a very clear illustration of even years beyond that, people are still holding on to certain behaviors, attitudes, and just defense mechanisms that have no relevance as far as where they're going or where they are in their relationship. And there's many others. There's some people that no matter what you do, they just don't trust in a particular area. And it can do damage to your relationship. I felt like she didn't trust me in that regard. Like, look, I'm not going to harm you in any of those ways. But for her, she was just like, no, it's just a good practice for me to protect myself. And I was just like, wow, so that it affected our relationship. And as you know, I'm not with her, I'm with my lovely wife. So it had an impact, and it's sad, but it's true. And I wish her well, but that's something it felt like it was a level of trust, not just in that area, but many other areas that I felt like I didn't want to have to continually walk on eggshells and be on guard for stuff I did not do. I could not help her. And I didn't understand at that time. I was much younger. I didn't understand how to even help her with that. And this is where we got to get into, if you need to detox yourself from your past, if you need to get counseling, professional help. Now, I'm going to say this to my Christian brothers and sisters. I love God, believe in God. I know God is a healer. I believe that. However, I do also believe that, you know, you need to seek professional counseling as well. Get those counselors out there to help you. Take the help. Don't say, well, I don't need help, I'm going to be fine. I believe you will be fine too, but get the help that you need in that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's why it's a good time to take that break. During that time, go to counseling, get healed, from that thing, from anything that happened traumatically in your previous relationship. Just really take that time to heal, because you're going to go right into that next relationship hurting people. And I know you've probably even seen it or experienced on the other side of it, have to deal with the the effects of what happened to that person before you. And it doesn't feel good to anybody to have to really take the blame, or not even really take the blame, but just really have to be with that person in their brokenness. You want to give yourself to somebody whole, healed, if you can. Not saying you're going to be perfect, but then, moving on in that next relationship better. But I think sometimes we don't want to be alone. I know a lot of women, we don't want to be alone too long, especially if you just came out of a long relationship. You got used to how things were and used to being around somebody. And, sometimes being by yourself for a long time may not be what you want, but it's the best thing for you, because it gives you that opportunity to present yourself to the next person as your pretty much your best. Especially, if he's a good guy or she's a good woman, you don't want to give them someone broken, and you don't want to have, put it on them to fix it. Saying, well, this is just how I am. Sometimes, because it's so painful and we've never dealt with it, we still don't deal with it, even in that next relationship. And it's just like, it's hard to be with someone that does not want to talk about it, does not want to deal with it, does not want to heal from it. And that's really what it is. I don't want to heal. I want to continue to be the victim. And you may not even see it that way, but that's how it can be perceived. And over time, if the person is not patient enough to deal with you, or to even want to be in a relationship, or even, want it that bad, they may, they may leave.
Yeah, and there's certain, even, I would say, situations that may be triggering for some people. So, like, I know for, and I know sometimes I see on social media, we laugh at certain things that, like, there's always that video or meme that, like, if, someone misses, if someone doesn't text you right back, you get this succession of calls, instant messages, all these different things. Like, I hope you enjoying your new girl. Like, yo, I was asleep for real, or I was out doing something, or I was in the bathroom. Like, and I think that, some people's triggers is that, if like you don't get a call right back, doesn't mean that somebody's cheating.
Yeah.
Or if you don't get a call right back, that doesn't mean that, something bad is going on. And I think some people's inclination, because of previous experiences, is to jump off the deep end. If you always going off the deep end and find yourself having to apologize to get back out that deep end, you need to detoxify yourself from, why am I feeling like this every time this particular event happens? You
may not be ready to be in that relationship.
No.
Really, those are signs that we ignore. A lot of people ignore. Some women are extremely jealous. Some women are, and I've always had this thing with me that, and I've always told you, if I didn't trust you, I can't be with you.
Right.
So if you give me a reason that I can't trust you, I'm not the type of person to go through your phone like that. Like, I don't have the time, I don't have the energy, and I feel like if I got to do all of that, then I don't know if I can be with you, because I can't live the rest of my life like that. Always afraid that you're going to cheat on me, always afraid that, there's something going on behind my back, and I try to be as a safe place as possible, so you can share with me whatever you need to share with me. But, I just think it's important that you not get into a relationship if you are truly afraid of someone cheating on you, and truly afraid of going through what you went through before, and how it felt, before when you were in that cheating relationship, because obviously you were being cheated on before. There are some people that won't cheat on you, and if you feel like you're never going to be in that type of relationship, because maybe some people feel like all men are cheaters, because people say that.
It's not true. False news, fake news, all that good stuff.
You just gotta know in your mind that I'm going in this thing trusting him, and I'm not saying be a fool, but you gotta be discerning. You gotta kind of be aware of, certain things. That's why we get to choose who we, during the dating, during when you first meet somebody, you're just dating them. This is your opportunity to kind of catch them in, some lies or whatever. See if you really can trust this person, even during that state, phase. You can kind of see through. Is he, not saying be absolutely skeptical, but if certain things aren't adding up, then there you go.
Yeah.
Because
you don't have to date them a year to figure that out.
Yeah, they start certain things won't add up in the beginning. It just won't. You'll be in conversation and be like, okay, but you said this and that, and you don't even necessarily have to expose that something's off. You can just say, you just know that this is not quite right, because if they're lying about this little thing and they're not being honest, then they're not going to be honest in the relationship.
Yeah. Another thing we have to be careful of too is, and this is going to previous relationship before we jump into, your current relationship. Let's go ahead and jump into the current relationship, because I think that sometimes when we're in relationships, and sometimes we don't know certain things are maybe triggering until we get in relationships. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing you have to do is be honest and say, hey, look, this bothers me because of this. You can't, if you expect to be with this person for a long term, you can't expect for them to just figure things out. And I think that's one of the most toxic things that people can do in relationships. Like, they're not paying attention. You didn't tell me. I may notice some things, but I don't know for sure. Can you come to me and talk to me? Can we be adults about this? We're not middle school, high school. We talk, come to talk to me. And it's crazy that, people are intimate in so many other ways except the truth. Can we be intimate in truth? Can we be forthcoming in truth? And it's not that, you can't be afraid that you're going to scare somebody off. Okay, do you want to be hurt every day because somebody may be saying or doing something that bothers you? Do you want to be passive aggressive? And, or do you want to be honest? And if this person really is not willing to change, are you willing to be whole and free? Or are you willing to be hurt and in a relationship? It's really sometimes it comes down to simple choices. And sometimes we choose our pain. And we have to understand too, going back to what you were saying earlier, another toxic thing that we do, and we allow it to ourselves. Sometimes we let the poison in because, of the reasons that we want to be in a relationship. Sometimes we accept what we don't want just because I don't want to be lonely, or, time. Time is a trick. Time can make you do things that you should not do. Some people are under pressure. I'm running out of time. I've been single for 2 years. Let me just get in a relationship. Or, I'm getting older. I want to get married. Oh, he approached me. Let me just see, and you can see red flags all day long, but because of time, you just blind yourself to it, end up married, and then you're thinking, what did I do? And you know what? You know how I know that? Because I did that in my marriage previous to my wife. It's like I let pressures put me in a situation because of somebody else's factors that, my ex-wife, her pressure as far as, she was, much older than me. And she was like, well, I was young, trying to, still figure things out. I felt like I needed more time. She was like, well, I don't have that time to wait. Either you want to be with me or not. And it just pressure. And I succumbed to it. And I looked up one day, I was like, man, what did I do? This is, but anyway, I would say this, you have to be careful with that as to your why. Make sure your why is something that's fulfilling for you. Like this, Tanesha is like a compliment to me. She has taken me to so many different heights. She has helped me overcome so many challenges. And when I say, sometimes there's certain things that don't come up about our past until it comes up. And I'm not saying there may be just because that happens doesn't mean someone's keeping anything from you.
We're not hiding it.
When it comes up, you talk about it, you deal with it.
Because a lot of times you like really block a lot of the stuff out. You don't even you don't remember it because it was just something that you never wanted to relive.
Yeah.
You never wanted to think about it.
Yeah. And I agree with that.
I think one thing too we got to be careful with is familiar. Like, just getting in the same type of relationships, this type of relationship I'm comfortable with. I don't know what it's like being in. I don't know. Some people don't know what it's like for someone to really treat them good. They may not feel like they deserve it. So during this time of you being by yourself, this is a time to really say, why do I not deserve someone to treat me right? Why do I feel like abuse is love? Why do, because certain things that we've seen growing up or we've experienced growing up has shaped us and made us into who we are today. And we got to be careful with those things that we're comfortable with versus, what we really need to be, the direction we really need to go into when it's, in terms of being in a healthy relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes, and I'm learning this a lot. My wife, she's exposed me to a lot of great things. I believe I exposed you to some
Yes,
great
you
things as
have
well.
to. Yeah.
And I think sometimes
Things I didn't realize.
what we understand is subjective to what we've been exposed to. Always look to expose yourself to new things. And, you know,
Or be around couples that have real good, healthy relationships.
yeah. Yeah.
If all your friends are having toxic relationships, you know, you might want to get around a group of people that have really good, healthy relationships. It's not going to be perfect, so you're not going to find a perfect
There's
relationship.
no such thing as a perfect relationship.
But that you know, you can tell that they're not afraid to get through some of the tough stuff. They're willing to talk through some of the issues that they have. Like they're willing to overcome and work together and still be on one accord, you know, no matter what, you know, no matter what's happening. Sometimes you'll see people go through some traumatic stuff, and if they're still standing together, you know, that's a strong, solid marriage, you know, strong, solid relationship. And you got to find that. You can't go by how things look. Okay, on social media, they're taking pictures, or they seem on the outside to be very, very happy and everything. But sometimes when you get in their personal space, you'll start to see the true, like how they treat each other behind closed doors. You know, we don't see everything, but sometimes when you're in people's private space, they'll kind of get comfortable, and then you begin to see what type of relationship they really have. Not to be judgmental, but just see if this is a couple that we need to really be around, or I need to be around, so I can see that there is another way, that there is hope for me in my relationship, or hope for me to even know what a healthy relationship looks like, because a lot of us do not know what healthy relationships look like, or even how to maintain one.
And another thing too, one of the biggest toxic traits that we all have is, you know, you know, if you look at a situation and say, oh, this makes sense. You look at your relationship, oh, it makes sense for me to get in a relationship with this person. What makes sense? What part of it makes sense? And I think sometimes we get ourselves in trouble because of things that make sense. You know, even like trying to make sense out of a situation. Even once you're in once you're in a relationship, or even married, and you know, you just can't go based on what makes sense. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's have some open dialogue, because sometimes we are being, you know, we're too surface with it, and a lot of issues. A lot of challenges. They're not surface issues. They're not easy to get over. You got to go deep.
You got to ask questions. Yeah. You got to find out what's really going on. Yeah, what's happening for real.
I even realized some of my challenges came from some stuff I went through in my childhood, as far as how I see and I frame things, how I see it, and how I pursue them. And it's like, she's like, well, why do you do that? And I'm like, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know.
And when somebody asks you,
go ahead.
When somebody asks you, why do you do that? Like, this is not the time. Like, you know, if they're really truly, you know, have good intentions and not trying to, you know, play you and not trying to be funny. But when I ask them that, I'm really trying to understand. And in a relationship, you always have to try to understand. That's when we say go deep. So I ask that question because I want to understand, not because I'm trying to make fun of him, or I think it's, you know, I just want to you know, joke around about it. But I really, you know, you really need to understand to go deep. But go ahead, finish.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, so, and again, we're talking about, you know, getting the toxicity out of our relationships. When you go deep, when you ask questions, and this is the thing that's, and I tell my wife this all the time, and she's starting to see it. I said, sometimes the first question is the worst question.
Yeah. I see that now.
Yeah, it's like, okay, nah. It's like you really don't ask a question. It's kind of like, it's like being nosy versus asking a question to help. You know? And she's like, oh, what happened again? I'm like, oh, here we go. So I answer her question. She was like, oh, and then she asked a good question.
Yeah. You gotta go deep.
You gotta go deep. You can't be afraid to ask those difficult questions. And if your spouse, or you know, when you're in a relationship, if you're looking, you know, in a relationship to say, hey, I want to marry this person, I want this person to be a part of my life long term, you gotta get to the nitty gritty, because if you don't, it's gonna cause frustration. It's gonna cause you not to understand them, and it will have an impact. It will affect in a negative way if those things come up and they're not dealt with. You keep, you know, and sometimes we can complain, and this is one thing that's dangerous that we don't realize we do sometimes. Again, speaking to detoxifying relationships, it's like sometimes if an issue keeps reoccurring, or a mindset, sometimes we complain about that issue, and that issue keeps rearing its head, And it's like, hey, it's a problem. It's a problem. It's a problem. And we just shoot away like, man, get over that. And it's like, that person may be hurt, and this is why they're doing that. So like you have many opportunities to address someone's issues, their pain, some past trauma, or help them overcome it. But because it annoys you, and it's like this, if you care about this person, why is this triggering for you? Let me address what's triggering it instead of shooing it away because I'm annoyed by it. You know what I'm saying? We have to be very patient, and sometimes we don't like that word patience, and that's one of the most important things. If I say I'm gonna make a committed lifetime commitment to you, you have nothing but time.
Because love is really patience.
It's patience, yeah.
And that's how you really know someone really loves you. I feel love when I can sense that he's being truly patient with me. I'm like, wow, he loves me because he's really patient with me with this situation, you know. And you can feel the love. If I can say one more thing, you know, when you were talking about asking questions and digging deep, I want to say this: don't ask questions because you want to, I guess, defend your argument. You know, we're asking questions, like we said before, to understand. That's all questions should be about. I just want to better understand you, not so you can get ammunition and say, oh, so that's why and you might bring up something from like 5 years ago. Oh, so this is why you're doing X, Y, and Z. Oh, so, you know, and just kind of prove your point. You know, we always talk about, do you want to be right? Or do you want to be, you want to be right or you want to be reconciled? You know, you can choose. You know, you don't have to be right all the time, but sometimes we want to ask. So we're not saying ask these questions
to load up.
These are questions only to understand. And when you want to understand something, you'll begin to dig deep. You'll take, okay, so this is the answer to this question. So let's dig a little bit deeper. So where did this come from? And, you know, not to prove a point, not to win an argument. You know, everything is not about you winning an argument. Everything is not about you being right. Let me just be clear on that, because I just kind of felt like someone be like, oh, I can ask questions, and then you get distracted by the answers, and then it becomes something that is not even you've missed your opportunity to really find out and dig deep, because you got distracted by what the responses were.
Yeah, and it goes back to the intention of your heart. If you really love this person, if you really want them to be happy, if you want to be happy with them, you want to build something and grow together, be patient, be kind, be understanding, and don't judge them for something that some people may not even have control over. Certain things that we do are defense mechanisms from our past, and we have to overcome those challenges. Some challenges are more difficult to overcome than others. So again, patience is paramount. You have to be very, very patient.
And I feel like when you begin to judge, that means you really don't understand. You really not you've not really you don't understand the heart, and you know they're truly what's going on. That's why when you feel like you want to judge, you definitely got to ask more questions, because it's like, well, let me really understand this, because I could be saying this thing all wrong, and 9 times out of 10 it'll all make sense if you keep asking the right questions.
Yeah, and I think one thing I want to also bring to light, I know we're getting long in the teeth on the video,
That's cool.
Yeah,
That's
but
cool.
I think too, in understanding that, I think, you know, some people's coping mechanisms come from their trauma, and that there's a behavior that may be in the behavior that you don't feel like it's the most healthy for the person that you're with. It could be a coping mechanism for something else. One of my coping mechanisms is working. I will work. I don't want to, if, you know, I will, if I feel like I have to deal with something, well, this is in the past, and you helped me with this. I would just, instead of kind of like dealing with something, I would just work. So I wouldn't have to think about it. I keep myself busy until all that eventually made me sick. And then I was down. Remember that time I had to be down for 2 weeks? I couldn't do anything. And it was just like, hey, you're stressed out. You're doing too much. You need a break. And it was just, and then in those times I had like, man, let me really, okay. And I was able to think, you know, because I couldn't go nowhere, couldn't do nothing, you know, because the doctor and my wife put me on lockdown. But and it's not that, you know, some of the stuff I was even just working, it really wasn't our marital stuff. It was just stuff from, you know, the past, you know, things that was going on with, you know, pressure it's, and so whatever, if there is a behavior that, you know, I don't understand why they're like this, like, you know, ask questions. I encourage counseling or even getting a mentor, somebody that understands them. I know one thing I've done, my father died in 2002. So I asked my mom questions about my father to help understand me, you know. So that's helped a lot, like, hey, when y'all was going through this and this happened,
How did he deal with
how
X,
did
Y,
he
Z?
deal with XYZ? And I look at me and how I think in certain regards, and I'm like, okay, I picked this up from Pops, and this is how I need to. So we have to confront things. We have to ask questions. Sometimes the questions get uncomfortable, but they're necessary.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
very, very necessary.
Absolutely. So yeah, I hope all this information helped. So let us know what you think.
Yeah.
If you have any questions about anything we talked about, if you want us to go deeper into a certain area, anonymously, you can inbox us or send us an email, whatever you need us to do, or whatever you want us to address. We're here for you. We want to make sure everyone's relationships are healthy and whole, and we want you to jump in and stay in. Until next time, we want you to what?
Jump in.
See you guys later.
Y'all take care.
Bye.